It is a few minutes after 11 a.m. Eastern, so I do want to kick off and get started. So my name is Lauren Rosalenko, and I am a customer experience manager at monday.com. In addition to working directly with users, I also focus on nonprofit partnerships at monday.com. And so I'm very excited to host our very first and the first of many nonprofit webinars with our partner UPchieve. So just to give a little bit of background on what we're looking to do, in 2021, we're really kicking off with a major focus on social impact and expanding our reach to nonprofits globally. So we're looking to learn more about how we can better assist you and your organizations with the monday.com platform. We really see this as a true partnership and an opportunity to learn more directly from you and your organizations, who have already been using Monday or are looking to expand your reach with the platform. We want to better understand how it works for you and how we can provide the right resources and solutions to optimize how you're using monday.com. So really excited that this is just the start. And I'll kick off with a few housekeeping items, and then we'll pass it over to Shelby, who will be joining us from UPchieve. So in terms of housekeeping, you can send all of your questions into the Q&A box. In addition to myself, we also have Hen. He is joining us and will be able to answer questions throughout along with me while Shelby is speaking, and we'll also have Q&A at the end too. If you cannot hear or see the screen at any point in the webinar, you can let us know in that chat box. So this will be separate from the Q&A. And then lastly, following the webinar, we will be sending the recording of this automatically to the email address that you signed up for. So you will get a recording if for some reason you have to drop or you want to share it with other team members who may not have been able to join. For any Israeli-based users, we also have a translation option for Hebrew because this will be conducted in English. And then lastly, we'll also be sending you templates of the boards that Shelby is presenting today. So with that, I would like to share a little bit and hand it over to Shelby. So it'll be UPchieve, which is our organization based in Brooklyn, New York. They've been using the platform for a bit over a year, and Shelby Crowell will share more about how they've been using Monday and how it's helped them while working remotely. So Shelby, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for that introduction. So my name's Shelby. I manage corporate partnerships at UPchieve. So UPchieve is an edtech nonprofit. We provide low-income high school and middle school students with free on-demand access to academic support that's available 24/7 on any device. So currently, we connect students with live certified volunteer tutors for help within 15 topics in math, science, and college counseling. So like Lauren said, we've been using monday.com for about a year, and I'm sure you can all appreciate what a crazy year it's been. So I'm sure you all can understand that COVID has been really horrible for education equity in the US. When schools closed down and learning went remote in March, we at UPchieve realized that we had to make a lot of changes to our platform and fast, and also really fast track our expansion plans to make sure that more low-income students weren't left further behind by the pandemic. A year later, we have over 12 times the number of students on our platform, and we really have monday.com to credit for keeping our team aligned, organized, sane during this really crazy, kind of disheartening, but also exciting time for our mission and our organization. So before I get into it, I wanted to give you guys a quick plug because I know a lot of the people joining work at nonprofits. So if your nonprofit serves low-income high school students or students ages 13 and up in the United States, we would love to support them with their schooling. So please feel free to learn more at upchieve.org/students, or just go ahead and reach out to us at students@upchieve.org for more information. Cool. So like I mentioned earlier, everyone on UPchieve uses monday.com. So our product team uses it, our student outreach team uses it, our volunteer manager uses it. I work in fundraising, so I'll be showing you how I use monday.com to manage fundraising functions, but just know it's like a tiny sliver of how we use monday.com at UPchieve. So I'll be showing you a couple of different boards today. I'll start off by showing you how I use monday.com as a CRM or customer relationship manager. So I'll show you my development pipeline and my corporate partnership management board. Those are kind of examples of how I use Monday as a CRM. Then I'll go into how I use monday.com for project management, and I'll use grant writing as an example for that. I'll finish off by just showing you a couple features that I really enjoy on monday.com that kind of like surprised and delighted me. And we'll finish it off with some Q&A, and we have actual monday.com experts on the call today to take your questions. So it's not just me, because I'm really just a novice. Awesome. So I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. So this is my development pipeline board. I thought this would be a good place to start because almost all nonprofits have development pipelines that they manage. This was actually the very first board that I created for UPchieve on monday.com. I'll start by giving you a quick overview of the board and what it is, and then I'll get into how I leverage some of the features from monday.com to kind of make my life a little bit easier and make sure I don't drop the ball on anything. So the first part of the board just contains basic information about this funder. I use the update section to keep up to date with all the different contacts I've had with this funder, every meeting I've had with them, every phone call, every email, etc. I have their email ID. Then the next part of the board is where I track the status of the relationship and the next step. So I have here the status of the relationship. Are they super high priority? Are they an active prospect? Are they kind of inactive? What my next step with this prospect is. The last contact that I had with the organization, and then the next time that I'm due to follow up with them. And then the end of this board kind of just contains sales forecast information. So how much am I planning to ask for them in 2021? What's my probability of closing the deal? And then what's the forecast value? So the probability adjusted forecast value for that relationship. So I use the formula column to come up with this number. So I'll just show you how right now. It's pretty easy. I just look for the formula column. Here it is. I add it to the board. And then just like in Excel, I get to type in the formula that I want this column to calculate. So for me, I want to multiply the 2021 ask amount by the close probability. And that's it. It populates the entire column for me. It's pretty amazing. Oops, I put in the wrong formula, but you guys get it. And then I go down to this cell at the bottom and I can select USD for the unit. So that's how that works. It's really, really easy to use. I'll go ahead and delete that. So now that I've given you an overview of what this board is for, which is tracking my relationships with potential fundraising prospects that I have yet to close, but I'm currently in communication with, that's kind of what that board is for. And now I'll go into how I leverage the specific features on monday.com to manage my development pipeline. So I'll start off with the chart view. I love this view. It basically lets me see the forecast value of each partner that I'm currently in communication with. So I love this view because it lets me see where I should be allocating my resources and my time based on which relationships are potentially like highest value for UPchieve's mission. So I can see here, this relationship is very high value. They have a pretty high percentage of my total forecast value across all my different partners. I also use this chart to present to my boss and give presentations to other stakeholders as well. It was super, super easy to set up. All that I had to do was go to views. I searched for chart view. Then this box popped up. I selected pie charts. For the labels, I selected the name of the funder or foundation I was in talks with. And then for value, I selected forecast value. And then I wanted to show the values as a percentage. But that's pretty much it. It was very, very easy to set up. It's been super helpful in managing my time and kind of keeping my coworkers and colleagues up to date on what I'm doing. I'll go back to the main table view. Another view that I really like is the filter view. So I filter by close probability. You guys can kind of see that there's a lot of information on this board. There's a lot of different relationships that we're tracking, and it can be like really overwhelming and kind of makes me feel scattered. So when I want to hone in on the relationships that realistically we have the highest potential of closing, I filter by close probability. And I have this view set up right here, so I can see only the relationships that we have 50% or more chance of closing. So this kind of helps hone me in on where I should be most focused on any given day or week. I'll go back to the main table view. I also have some automation set up on this board, which have been really helpful. So like I mentioned, I use this development pipeline board to track my relationships with potential prospects that I have yet to close. So once an organization's status changes from prospective partner to current partner, they go to another board that I keep on monday.com, which is called donor management. So I have this automation set up. So automatically, when I change a donor status, I'll show you right now. When I change a status from, say, high priority to current partner, it disappears and it goes to another board on Monday. So that's super, super helpful because it saves me time, but also it doesn't lose any information. So all this great info here that I keep in the update section, that will stay over when the item moves from my pipeline board to my donor management board. And another automation that I have set up that has been a lifesaver is populating items in my to-do list. So I showed you this earlier. These are two super important columns in this board. It's the last time I was in touch or we were in touch with this prospect and the next time that we're due to follow up with a prospect. So this date is what I'm really looking at here. So when the next date arrives, or when the date that we have an action item or we're due to follow up with the donor, monday.com automatically creates an item in my Shelby reminders board, which is just my to-do list that I am constantly checking to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So that was my development pipeline board. I hope this was helpful so far. I know I'm going through kind of a lot of info kind of fast. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, like Lauren mentioned, or we're going to have an awesome Q&A section after my presentation. So the other way that I use monday.com as a CRM to track donor communications is with my corporate partner management board. So this is actually my favorite board on monday.com, and it's the one that I use most frequently. For your context, UPchieve as an organization, we make money from writing grants and also from receiving grants from individuals or foundations that want to support our mission. But we also earn revenue from companies in exchange for engaging their employees as volunteers on our platform. So it's kind of a special kind of relationship, special kind of partnership. And a big part of my job, I mean, I'm corporate partnership manager, is making sure that those partners are satisfied with their partnership with UPchieve and that their employees also are having meaningful engagements on our platform. So that's kind of what this board does. I'll give you a quick overview of the board, just like I did with the pipeline. So we have, of course, the name of the company here. The update section, I use in the same way that I use the update section for the pipeline just to keep track of communications, each company has their own specific goal for the number of employees they want to engage. So I have that goal here, and then I also have the number of people that have signed up in this column. So these columns are super important. They help me just at a glance know, what's our goal and how are we doing? Are we falling behind? Are we doing super well? I get to see that at a glance. Then I have the next step column, like a quick overview of like what I need to do as a next step with this partner. I love the sub items column on monday.com. I use it a lot on this board. It helps me keep track of the specific tactics I've used to recruit volunteers at a given company. And it also helps me keep track of what I haven't done yet. So, for example, with company A, I know what I've done and I know what I haven't done. So the next time I get on a call with them, I can be like, hey, we're almost there. We're almost at 1,000 employees engaged. Here are some ideas that I have to take the relationship to the next level. So I definitely love sub items view, especially in this board. I have a status column. So pretty much any opportunity I have to incorporate fun colors into my Monday board, I will take that opportunity. So this status column lets me see, are we actively working to improve the relationship? Are we exceeding expectations? Or are we not doing so well? Maybe they're being kind of unresponsive. I have the start date of the partnership, when each partner needs their reporting completed. On a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, a lot of our partners have like specific requests around reporting as well. And then when is the due date for the next report? And then finally, very importantly, I have the financial level that each partner is at and whether we've received that money yet. So really important stuff to keep track of. So now I'll go into some of the features that I leverage on monday.com to manage corporate partners. One feature I really like for this one is the line chart view. So I showed you earlier the goal column and the number sign up column are great because they give me a snapshot of how each partner is doing in terms of employee engagement. So this chart just helps me visualize that further. I have one bar that's the goal and I have another bar that's the number signed up. And it helps me at a glance see which partners are doing really well and which partners are not doing so well. So for example, this partner, they're doing amazingly. Like I definitely have to follow up with them and like see what their special sauce is. This partner is not doing so well. Luckily, they started pretty recently ago, so I still have time to continue working on that. And the way that I set this view up is pretty similar to how I set the pie chart up. I just selected bar instead of pie chart. I always organize the data by name because I want it to be by partner or by prospect. And then on the y-axis, I selected 2 items because I wanted it to be a double bar chart. So super simple to set up. Let me see. Oops, darn. Okay. Okay, perfect. And I just want to get back to regular view. Okay, so now I'm back at table view, and I'll show you, I also have an integration set up on this board as well. So I mentioned earlier that we send reports on sometimes different frequencies to our corporate partners. So another team member at UPchieve helps me pull these reports for me. So I created an integration that sends an email to this person 3 days before the due date that the report is due. So I'll show you a little how I created this formula. It asks me for when I want the notification to go out, the column that it's going to align with, so the due date for me, the report due date. We only send reports to corporate partners that have confirmed with us, so the funding has been received from them. And then I can also customize the email that I want to send to my colleague. And I can insert fields as well. So everything is really clear. And it really has made our lives a lot easier. Alrighty, so that is the Corporate Partnership Management Board. So now I've showed you guys 2 examples of how I use monday.com as a CRM to manage prospect relationships or to manage partner relationships. Now I'll show you a couple examples of how I use monday.com for project management. So I use monday.com actually for many different projects. For example, donor communication is a big one. And different campaigns that we're planning, et cetera. But I wanted to use grant writing as an example because it's probably where I use monday.com the most, because there is so much information related to grant writing, and it can be such a complicated process. So this is my grant pipeline board. So this, as you can see, is a super hardworking board. It has so much information. I set it up earlier this year, actually, and it's really been a lifesaver so far. So it contains everything from, research I've done on the foundation, their name, their fit, their alignment, and then it helps me plan my grant writing workflow, keep track of my to-do list, keep track of the timeline and the due date. And then over here, I have just the sales pipeline, just like I did for the development pipeline board. So I'll start by just walking you through what I have here. So we have the name of the funder. I use the update section in this board to just keep track of research that I've completed on that funder. I also have the fit here, if they're a 1, 2, or a 3. Context on my history or our history at UPchieve with the funder. So have we applied before, and did we lose or did we win? The funder website, a brief snapshot of how we align with their mission, and then what we want the next step to be with that funder. So for a lot of these foundations, we're going to submit a grant or we're going to submit an LOI. However, some of them we might actually want to just reach out and request more information or try to get on a call. I use the sub items column again in the grant pipeline. It is a lifesaver. So for this one, I just use the sub items column to track my to-do list for more straightforward grant applications. So for example, for this one, it's pretty straightforward, drafted outline, create a rough draft, have someone proofread it, get the budget, and then hit submit. Easy peasy. I have a status column. I allocate a timeline to each action item for each foundation. So depending on what the action item is, so depending on what the next step is rather, this could be, 3 to 4 days if I'm writing an email, or it could be, up to 2 to 3 weeks if it's a more complicated grant proposal that we're writing. The most important part of the board is the due date. So I'm one of those people where if I don't set myself a due date for something, I will not do it. So regardless of whether the foundation has a strict due date on their website or not, I always assign a due date for myself, and then I just make a note if it's a fixed deadline that I really have to get that grant report in by, or is it a rolling deadline? And if I miss the due date, it's not really a big deal. Then at the end, just like I did for the development pipeline, I have the request amount. So how much money are we going to ask for from this foundation, our probability of getting that amount of money, and then the probability adjusted total, which I do with formulas, just like I showed you for the development pipeline. Let's see. So for this, I have a couple different views that I like. I love calendar view for this. So I mentioned earlier that I use this board to kind of help me track my grant writing workflow for the entire year. So I can, skip ahead to May and I can see, what do I have planned for May? What do I have planned for June? This helps me plan my week. It helps me prioritize things. And it also helps me make sure that I don't have too many things going on at one time. So like I should never be working on ideally more than one, but definitely not more than 2 grants at once. So if I have to move something around, I can just click on the funder and I can see all the information in this view too. So I really like that. And I can go ahead and make changes right in this view. So I can see, is this deadline fixed or is it rolling? Like, do I have any flexibility here? And then I can move the timeline and the due date around as I need to. Okay, so that's calendar view. I'll go back to table view and I'll show you some automations that I have set up. So the most important thing for this board is making sure I don't forget about a deadline or a due date. So I have reminders that go out to myself and also my boss when a due date is arriving and when it has arrived. And I also use this board to let my boss know when I have submitted the grant. So this formula is when all sub-items of an item have the sub-item status of done, notify Ali Murray. So it's kind of complicated, but I'll just show you what it's actually doing. So it's looking at my workflow column. When I have all of these items completed, when I've done everything and the last item is always submit, then it automatically sends my boss a notification so she knows that I have submitted the grant. She doesn't have to worry about it. She doesn't have to follow up with me. And it makes our lives that much easier. So that is kind of my grant pipeline board in a nutshell. Like I mentioned earlier, I use this pipeline to track the grant writing workflow for grants that are more straightforward. So grants from corporations or grants from individuals or smaller family foundations. However, you all might have experienced before that if you're writing a grant for a more, say, a bigger funder, or even from a government or a department within the government, it's going to be a much more difficult and complicated process. And there's going to be a lot of different moving steps. So I personally, full disclosure, have never submitted a government grant before. I've heard that it's really hard, so I'm not looking forward to that. But this is the example of a board I created for a more complicated grant. So when I do have a more complicated grant that I'm working on, I create a separate board for that grant. And it's usually like pretty straightforward. And this is typically something like what it looks like. So I keep track of my different requests from different teams. For example, requests from the engineering team, requests from the data team. I'm able to assign each item to a different team member. I let everyone know like how many pages does this item have to be, what's the status, and what's the order of priority. So a pretty straightforward and simple board that I set up here, but it was super helpful and I was able to submit the grant on time. So it did really help me out. Alrighty, so that's pretty much it. Those are all the boards that I'm going to show you. Before I hand it back over to Lauren, I'm just going to show you guys a couple features on monday.com that kind of surprised me and I thought were cool. So I just wanted to give them a shout out now. So one feature that's awesome is the My Week feature. So I have a lot of different boards that I'm working with, and they all have different due dates and different deadlines that I have to follow, and it can sometimes make me feel really scattered. So I really love that I have this feature that puts together all my deadlines and all my to-dos within a given time frame, for example, a week. So I check this like pretty regularly now, but monday.com also let me know that they're actually planning to implement updates to this feature. So it's going to be even more powerful in the future. So I'm really excited for that to happen. And then one other feature that I've used that I thought was super cool is that you have the availability to create and send feedback forms or surveys right from the platform. So we recently launched a new donor community with UPchieve, which is called School Heroes. So these donors donate the amount that it takes UPchieve to expand to one new school and provide free academic support to all the students at one school. So it's extremely important that we are making these donors feel appreciated, that they understand the impact that their donation is having, and that they feel listened to, and we are, you know, responding to all their requests in a timely manner, and we know what they want out of the engagement. So when we launched this new donor community late last year, I sent out a survey like this, basically to learn more about their preferences, the information they were most interested in learning about, what their availability is like, you know, getting their opt-in to receiving emails from us, etc. And this was really, really easy to create. So I'll show you how now. I just created a new board. I created different text columns for each item that I wanted to collect information about. So super simple, super straightforward. Then I went to the form view and I was able to customize everything. I, you know, set a cute background color. I added UPchieve's logo. I added subtext to all of the questions. And I also changed the type of question that everything was. Is it a short answer question? Is it a drop down? Is it a multiple choice or a checkbox, etc.? So I really, basically, it's just like any other platform you might use to create and send forms, but it was really nice that I could do it on monday.com because this is where I keep all my information. So it was nice that I could just have everything here and I didn't have to move things around. Awesome. So that is it from me. I will go back to the presentation and hand it over to Lauren. And just before I go, I just wanted to say, I hope this has been interesting, you know, and informative so far. It's been such a joy to be here and like tell you and kind of geek out with you about monday.com. I'm a big fan, so I love kind of nerding out and sharing what I like. So thank you so much for joining this presentation, and thank you so much to monday.com for coordinating. Lauren, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shelby. We're getting a lot of very positive responses in the chat, and everyone's loving the boards and the different features you shared. So thanks so much for taking the time to do that. And if you also don't mind sticking around, it does look like we have a few questions that might be specific to some of the things you shared. So that would be really great. So I do want to kind of close out with some housekeeping, and then we can jump into Q&A. So we'll go through some of the questions that may not have been answered in the chat, and then also, you know, be able to answer more questions that you can continue to put into the chat, and we can get to, you know, as many of those up until the end of the hour. So just in terms of resources and support that you have as a monday.com user, is we do have our knowledge base. We have articles, we have videos. This has different features, our best practice guides. That's all at support.monday.com. And then you can search. So if it's the tags feature, the Gmail integration, any of that, you can go ahead and search for that right there. If you also do have a question that might not be answered, maybe it's about your workflow or something specific, support@monday.com is our 24/7 support team. Our customer experience team is always there and looking to help you with anything that you might need. So like I said, it could be workflow, it could be a question not shared there, shared in our knowledge base, could be billing question, any of that, that team is there to help. We are also have a community forum. So there you can speak with other monday.com users and champions. That's community.monday.com. And then for future webinars, we have, you know, other industry specific ones that might be, you know, related to CRM in certain industries, as well as general getting started or advanced webinars. Also, that's all at monday.com/webinars. So those are all of the resources that we have. And one last thing as well, with the recording and the awesome templates that we'll be able to share, thanks to Shelby, that will all be sent afterwards. And we also have a feedback form. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we really are looking to make this a partnership and learn more about how you're using the platform and what resources we can really better provide you with to make you successful with using monday.com. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And we'd welcome any feedback so that we can keep making this a really great place for nonprofits to continue working. So with that, I want to go back into the chat and look through a few of the questions that we haven't gotten to yet. So let's see, there were a few